Hello everybody and welcome to part 2 of the reboot of What If Peter Parker Was in My Hero Academia. This video diverges a lot from the original, adding new characters from Marvel, something which I actually regret not doing with the original when I was doing Superboy in MHA. I do hope you all enjoy this one a lot. It's one of my favorite series to work on because it was my first and I love Spider-Man so much. That said, please like, subscribe, and all that stuff. The other series you guys want are coming, just please wait patiently and enjoy this one in the meantime. Here we go! After entering UA High with flying colors, Peter finds himself with a pretty tough decision to make. Does he want to go to the hero course or the support course? After reflecting on the question for a few days, he calls the US staff and sets up an appointment with the principal. On March 7th, Peter goes back to UA High to talk about his placement the next school year. Upon arriving, Peter is greeted by Principal Nezu, who invites Peter into his office. Peter walks in a bit nervous. Nezu sits down on his desk chair and signals Peter to do the same. So, not saying a word, Peter sits down. Nezu breaks the silence. First, I would like to congratulate you on your accomplishments. It's a very rare occurrence that someone would apply to the exam to 3 different courses and would actually pass all exams. Even rarer is that you pass them with such high marks, the principal says. Thank you, responds Peter, very nervous about the situation. Only one question left then. How would you like to proceed, Parker? Asks the principal. Peter thinks about it for a moment and answers, It's Peter, sir, and I don't really know. I mean, I know I won't be going to the general studies course, mostly because of the limited selection and opportunities. Nezu nods, and so Peter continues. You see, the reason I applied to both the hero course and the support course was, well, you see, my parents were heroes. They kind of died stopping a villain, Venom, when I was 9 years old. I grew up with my uncle, who's quirkless. He taught me to help others any way I can. Since at the time it looked as if I was quirkless, and because of an interest in science and engineering that I had, I started making tech. I was also inspired by Iron Man a bit, but nonetheless. Peter stops for a moment to think and says, Sorry, I'm getting a bit off topic. I admired heroes and really wanted to help them, so I started making tech. I even made the support items I used during the entrance exam. He grabs the web shooters from his bag and hands them to Nezu, who starts inspecting them. But ever since my quirk awakened, Peter adds, and since I helped bring a villain to justice, I wanted to try and see if I could become a hero. So that's why I applied. Nezu starts processing what Peter said while looking at his web shooters. After a moment of reflection, he proposes something. Well, Peter, this is first and foremost a school for young heroes. It would be a huge waste to see all your potential go to waste. But at the same time, your talents in the world of science and technology are remarkable. They shouldn't go to waste either. He stops for a moment to think of the possibilities and continues. I would suggest a special program that will maintain for at least the first semester. We will have you participate in the hero course as your main focus, with some extra private lessons so you can develop your interest in the world of support items. In addition to this, you will be granted full access to the support labs and development studios of UA, in order for you to continue work on your support items. However, this will cause you to have a lot of extra work, and I realize it may take a lot of effort, meaning you wouldn't be left with much free time. Is this something you'd like to do, Mr. Parker? Peter smiles and without a moment of hesitation answers, Yes, absolutely! Are you sure? You don't want to take more time to consider the offer? Asks the principal. Peter, getting ready to leave, answers, No, this is perfect. Thank you very much, sir. Very well then, responds the principal. I'll get started on the paperwork. You'll hear from us shortly. Pleased with the outcome, of the transaction, Peter thanks Nezu again and heads back home. The next few days, Peter spends time preparing his suit designs and selecting a support company to represent him, preparing everything for when class starts. He comes with the whole design and goes into way too much detail on how everything should work. Eventually, spring arrives, and thus, so does the first day of class. After waking up, Peter quickly gets ready for school. He drops his brothers off at their school on his way, and then heads to UA. Since he didn't know the route or how long it would take, they actually leave the house pretty early, so Peter arrives at school with plenty of time to spare. While he enters the 1A classroom, there are only 6 people there. There's a lonely black-haired girl in the corner, a boy that looks like a bird who's sitting on the table, who is talking to a blonde-haired boy, and a guy with a tail. A girl who appears to be invisible is sitting on her desk, chatting with a frog-like girl. Peter stands at the door for a moment, inspecting the room. He is then approached by a blue-haired boy, wearing glasses. "Good morning! My name is Tenya Ida. I'll be your classmate from here on out. It's nice to meet you," the boy says. "Nice to meet you too. I'm Peter Parker, by the way," Peter says, a bit flustered. "So, Parker, what middle school are you from?" Ida asks. "Please call me Peter. I'm American, kind of used to people calling me by my first name," Peter says. "Oh, I'm sorry for the mistake, Peter. It's just you don't sound American," Ida says, bowing down. "Don't sweat it. Common mistake. People keep telling me I learned the language very quickly. To answer your question, I went to Midtown Middle School in Manhattan until recently, when I moved to Ditko Lee Middle School to finish the school year," Peter says. After the interaction with Ida is over, Peter steps into the classroom, sitting at his desk. He pulls his stuff out and is approached by a guy with a tail while he writes on his notebook. "Hey, your name's Peter, right? Thanks for helping me out during the exam," he says. Yeah, that's me." He looks up from his notebook. "Oh, it's you, tail guy." "My name is Mashirawa Ojiro," the boy says. "You don't have to thank me. I was just looking out for myself and doing what I usually would." "Glad you got in, though," Peter says. "Still thought I should thank you for the help," Ojiro says while walking away. Eventually, a blonde boy walks in, sitting on a chair and putting his legs on the table. This causes Ida to scold him and to argue a bit. While they do, the door opens and a green-haired boy enters the room. Peter doesn't pay much attention though, instead talking with a couple of other people about how crazy the entrance exam was. After the conversation continues a bit longer, a man in a sleeping bag appears, creeping people out. "Welcome to UA's hero course," he says, after taking a sip from its juice. This creeps the class out, causing everyone to shut up. He stands up and takes the sleeping bag off, saying, "It took you 8 seconds for you all to shut up. That's not gonna cut it. Time is precious. Rational students would understand that." After a moment of silence, the man turns to the class and introduces himself. "Hello, I'm Shota Aizawa, your homeroom teacher." He pulls out a sports uniform from his bag and continues, "These are your sports uniforms. Put them on and meet me outside." The class puts on the uniforms and heads outside. While walking towards the PE grounds, Peter approaches the green-haired boy. "Hey, it's Midoriya, right?" Peter asks, not totally sure if he's remembering correctly. "Yeah, and you are?" Midoriya asks, not really remembering Peter. "Name's Peter Parker. We met briefly before the exam." "Glad to see you got in," Peter says. "Right!" exclaims Midoriya. "After Raka stopped me from falling. Sorry, it was a pretty exciting day. I completely forgot about you." "No worries," says Peter. "It's a pleasure to see you again. We should probably head to the sports grounds, though. There's no way of knowing what that creepy guy will have us do." They arrive at the PE ground, where Aizawa proceeds to explain that they'll be doing a Quirk Apprehension exam. The class seems both confused and surprised by this, so Aizawa gives Bakugo a softball to make a demonstration. He ends up throwing the ball 705.2 meters away, exciting the whole class. Since the class seems so excited, Aizawa decides to make it more interesting, threatening to expel the student who gets the worst grade, causing many class members to complain. The trials begin. First, the 50-meter dash. Peter manages to do pretty well, completing the dash in 5.01 seconds, with his adversary, Laura, finishing it in 5.22 seconds. After comes the strength grip test, where Peter gets a score of 527 kilograms, without really breaking a sweat. Then it's the standing long jumps. Peter jumps over the sandbox easily, being followed by Kamala Khan, who stretches her leg at the last moment to propel herself further, and then after a guy who uses a sonic attack at the ground to propel himself further. Up next is the repeated sidestep jump, where Midoriya fares pretty well, only being outdone by Mineta, Yayorozu, and the guy using the sound waves. After that test comes the ball throw. Here Peter does a pretty good throw, manages to send the ball 413.2 meters away. He steps back with Clayton Cole, the dude using Sonics, stepping up to the plate. He throws the ball backed up by a Sonic attack. The ball reaches 401.6 meters. "Damn it!" he shouts frustrated. He walks back to the crowd, bumping into Peter on the way. What's the matter with that guy? Peter thinks to himself. After, Kamala Khan steps up to the plate, throwing the ball 251.3 meters. Midoriya is up next. He has a moment of contemplation where he decides to use One for All. Aizawa stops him using his own quirk, so the ball only reaches 70.3 meters. Aizawa then talks to Midoriya, telling him to give up now. After hearing that, Midoriya takes a moment to reflect, grabs the ball, and using his power focused on one finger, he throws the ball 705.3 meters. The class looks at the throw astounded. Aizawa notes the potential in him being able to hold all that power in one finger, while many people start analyzing the throw. Peter, however, notices something different. His finger is totally broken. His power can't be properly contained by his body, he thinks while observing him. But if you were to use the right support item, I suppose you could technically reduce the damage, even negate it. What an interesting challenge that'd be. While Peter is thinking, Bakugo lunges at Midoriya and is promptly stopped by their teacher. The rest of the tests go pretty well, with Peter doing a decent to good job in them. After they're all done, the class gathers a bit nervous, thinking that the one last is going to get expelled. Aizawa says, "Alright, time to give you your results. I've ranked you all from best to worst. You should probably have a good idea of your standing already. I'll just pull out the whole list. It's not worth going over each individual score." He hits a button on a remote and the scores come up on a holographic screen, which are visible on screen now. After the scores are shown, Aizawa comments, "And I was lying. No one's going home. That was just a rational deception to make sure you gave it your all in the tests." The whole class sighs in relief. Peter lets out a small chuckle and says to Midoriya, "Well, at least you aren't going home, huh? I figured he wasn't going to expel any of us, but couldn't be totally sure." Like that, the first day of school ends. For most. But Peter still has his extra courses afterwards, so he heads to that. When that class finishes, 5:15, he heads to the development studio to take a look at the setup and to start developing some ideas. When he opens the door to the studio, a small explosion goes off, startling Peter. He looks at a pink-haired girl who's going crazy over her inventions, talking to another student who's wearing an Iron Man shirt. As Peter looks at Hatsume, startled, he is approached by another boy. "Ah, you must be Peter, our liaison with the hero course," the boy says. "I am," Peter affirms, shaking the boy's hand. "Great, I'm Harry Osborn. I'm supposed to show you to your work area since you're right next to me," he says. Peter stares at him in silence for a moment before saying, "Wait, you're American too, right? I mean, Harry isn't the usual name for Japan." "Wait, Osborn? Like Norman Osborn, the CEO of that huge company?" Harry sighs and says, "Sadly, yes, Norman Osborn is my father. A huge deal to everyone, which usually means he doesn't have time for his son." Peter puts his hand on Harry's shoulder and reassures, "That's rough, buddy." So what about you? What do your parents do? Harry asks, wanting to make small talk. Sorry, but my parents are dead, answers Peter. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to, says Harry, hesitating a bit. It's fine. I live with my aunt who runs a foundation, says Peter. So, my workstation? Alright, this way, says Harry while escorting Peter to his workstation. He gives Peter a small tour of the development studio, telling him where to find everything, where the storage area is, and so on. Also presenting him to some other support students like Shuri, Riri, Amadeus, and Hatsume. Once they finish, Peter starts working on an improved version of his web shooter, since the current version he has clogs up a lot and is a bit inefficient. While working, Peter sees that Harry is working on some blueprints for something. What are you working on? He asks, curious. Harry shows him the almost finished blueprints of a glider and explains what his plans are. Peter gives a couple suggestions upon seeing the blueprints to make the design a bit more efficient. What about you? What are you going to be doing? Asks Harry, wanting to start a bit of a dialogue. Peter puts up his sleeves and answers, well, I'm going to work on making these a little better. So far, they're my crowning achievement, but are highly inefficient. They get clogged easily and run out of webbing too quickly. I mean, when the design is based on something you made with materials from a dumpster, it kind of makes sense, so I figured I'd go for a newer version. So you're a dumpster diver? Asks Harry a bit in awe, being used to having all that he needs handed to him. Yeah, that must sound weird to you, being rich and all, says Peter. But I come from a poor family, so I would usually take stuff from dumpsters near support companies. I would frequent them so much that some of the developers even knew me and would give me the spare pieces directly instead of risking breaking them when throwing them out. They keep on talking and working for 2 more hours, basically until they're kicked out. Harry offers Peter a ride home in his limousine, which Peter accepts, arriving home just in time for dinner. The next day of class quickly arrives. Peter follows his routine, taking his brothers to school while Aunt May goes to work at the Fisk Foundation. Afterwards, he heads to UA with a bit of time to spare. He starts reading a couple of books on engineering, reading a research paper authored by Tony Stark and co-authored by Bruce Banner. Class starts and he goes through the regular classes. At lunch, he's invited to sit with Midoriya, but rejects instead sitting with Harry, who he talks to for a while eating. He is approached by someone from behind. If it isn't the famous Peter Parker, she says. Wait, I know that voice, Peter murmurs while turning around. Liz Allen! How have you been? Haven't seen you in a while, puny Parker, says Liz, wanting to tease Peter a bit. I've been alright since we moved here, but what are you doing here? Asks Peter, surprised to see her. Oh, my father got offered a job managing a new branch of a support company. It offered a lot of money, so he took it. So I decided to adapt and enroll here. I got into class 1B, she answers. Cool. Flash isn't here, is he? Peter asks, cowering a bit. Nah, he stayed in the States. Didn't have the dough to come overseas. He did manage to enroll in Avengers Academy, though, thanks to the scholarship program, she says. Great, Peter whispers. Kendall signals, so Liz says, so it's been great catching up. See you around, Parker. After she leaves, Harry says, what was that about? Peter proceeds to explain that they used to go to the same class together while in the States. For the rest of lunch, the two keep talking about personal stuff and their own private projects. The bell rings and so both students go to their respective classes. Peter takes a seat, impatient for the class to be over. He wants to head to the development studio. Then, All Might bursts into the room saying, I am here, coming in through the door like a hero. Excited, the class reacts to the number 1 hero's entrance. Why, I can't believe it's All Might, says Kaminari, followed by Kirishima shouting, so he is a teacher, this year's gonna be awesome. Then Kitty shouts, man, I can't believe he's actually going to be our teacher. Hey look, he's wearing his Silver Age costume, says Sue. I'm getting goosebumps. It's so retro, comments Ojiro. Peter thinks to himself, huh, so am I the teacher here? This is gonna be interesting if he's teaching us. All Might takes the stand and says, welcome to the most important class of UA High. Think of it as Heroing 101. Here, you'll learn the basics of being a pro and what it means to fight in the name of good. Let's get into it. Today's lesson will pull no punches! He pulls out a sign reading Combat, which excites the class. Peter thinks, is this really a good idea? Wouldn't starting out with rescue or learning more of the basics be a better strategy for school? Whatever, let's see how this turns out. Pushing a small button, All Might shouts, but one of the keys of being a hero is looking good! Some stands come out of the wall holding cases that contain the students' hero suits. These were designed for you based on your Quirk registration forms and requests you sent in before school started. Get yourself suited up and meet me at Training Ground Beta, All Might orders. Yes sir, shout the students in response. Later at Training Ground Beta, as All Might goes off with a monologue, the students start coming in, wearing their new hero suits. Peter comes out wearing an updated version of his onesie, something more in line with his classic Spiderman look. Aside from that, there's a visible belt which holds a couple gadgets and spare web fluid cartridges, and the web shooters that are visible on his wrist. The main part of the suit is reinforced with some plating to protect Peter from stronger hits and from falls. Aside from that, the eyes of the mask allow for enhanced vision, allowing him to focus better and even granting infrared and night vision. Laura Kinney comes out wearing a one-piece suit, mostly white while also mixing in some black and orange, even some yellow. It doesn't have many notable features aside from an X in the belt buckle. It's a suit made to add some defense without taking away flexibility. Clayton comes out wearing the classic Clash suit. It's mostly white with some blue, dark blue, black parts, with a sonic wave-like pattern on it. He has some metal gauntlets on his wrist meant to control, stabilize, and amplify his sonic attacks, without much damage to himself. Kamala comes out of the tunnel wearing her classic Miss Marvel costume, a blue and red suit with a lightning bolt down the chest. Kitty comes out wearing a white, black, and red suit. It's a suit meant to allow her flexibility and speed. It's mostly for show though. While stepping out of the tunnel, Peter refills his web shooters. Nice costume, Peter, says Tsuyu. Yeah, I really like the design, adds Kitty. Thanks. I have some notes for some improvements, but I'm very happy with how it turned out. Yours looks pretty cool too. I like the frog aesthetic, and Kitty, I'm not sure what you were going for, but I think it looks very cool on you. I like how the colors mesh, but it seems as though, Peter says before being cut off by All Might, who shouts, now that you're all ready, it's time for combat training. Ida raises his hand and asks, Sir, this is the model city from our entrance exam. Does that mean we'll be conducting urban battles again? Not quite, answers All Might. I'll be moving you 2 steps ahead. Most of the villain battles you see on the news take place outside. However, statistically speaking, run-ins with the most dastardly evildoers take place indoors. Think about it, backroom deals, home invasions, secret underground layers. Truly intelligent villains stay hidden in the shadows. For this training exercise, you'll be split into teams of good guys and bad guys, and fight 2-on-2 indoor battles. Isn't this a little advanced? Asks Tsuyu. The best training is the one you get on the battlefield, answers All Might. But remember, you can't just fight a robot this time. You're dealing with actual people this time. All Might is then barraged by questions. He answers by pulling out a script and explaining the exercise in detail. Afterwards, lots are drawn to determine the teams and their opponents. In this version of events, the matchups are Midori and Uraraka versus Bakugo and Ida, Todoroki and Jiro versus Ojiro and Laura, Kamala and Tsuyu versus Hagakure and Kirishima, Kaminari and Ashido versus Yaoyorozu and Mineta, Peter and Kitty versus Clayton and Tokoyami. All Might says, right, teams A and D get ready. Everyone else can head to the monitoring room to watch. The class agrees with All Might and they set off to their monitoring room while All Might goes to talk to the first 4 students to do the exercise. The class observes the match between teams Bakugo and Midoriya, as it goes exactly as it did in the main version of events. Peter analyzes everyone's movements and decisions, also thinking of ways to improve their quirks and stuff through support items. When he finally sees Midoriya use his quirk, he thinks, wow, that's super powerful! But again, at what cost does it come? There might be some equipment that can take some strain away, but I'm pretty sure anything would break with that amount of power. After that match, Midoriya is sent to the infirmary, as the rest return to the monitoring room. Ida is named the MVP of the first match, and the second match begins shortly after. The match starts with Jiro using her quirk to ascertain the location of the rival team. Todoroki warns her to stay outside, while he freezes the whole building. After he walks towards the weapon, he quickly finds his way to the weapon room. Once he enters, Ojiro gets in a battle stance. "Pry yourself up if you want," says Todoroki in response. "But it might be hard to fight me with no skin at the bottom of your feet." Just then Lara pries herself out of the ice by force, lunging at Todoroki. "What?" he exclaims in surprise. She jumps into the air, opening her claws, a small snicked sound being heard, and lunging at Todoroki. To defend himself, Todoroki quickly erects a wall of ice, using it as cover to run to the weapon. Laura punches the wall of ice, sticking her claw in to use as leverage to jump over the wall. She lands in front of the weapon, blocking Todoroki's path towards it. "This might be harder than I thought," he says, a bit of worry in his voice. Laura lunges at him, trying to cut him, so he blocks, making a small wall again. She, however, grabs onto it with her claws, using it to pivot and slash at him with her feet. She slashes at him, making a small cut in his arm. She then frees her claw and goes back onto the offensive. Todoroki tries to block over and over again as she cuts him in non-essential places in order to slow him down. In the monitoring room, the class seems pretty concerned, but All Might lets it slide, knowing her history, and she's going for unharmful cuts. During the fight, Todoroki manages to get the upper hand for a moment, grabbing onto Laura's arm. He starts freezing her. Before the ice can spread much, she cuts her own arm off. Blood gushes everywhere, scaring many students. You're insane!" exclaims Todoroki in surprise while thinking back to his own trauma. "No," Laura whispers in a tone that is barely hearable. "I'm resourceful." Laura just keeps going. She goes until she has Todoroki backed into a corner, at which point she uses the capture tape. Having defeated her foe, she walks towards her arm and grabs it, putting it in place and waiting for it to heal back together. Time goes by with Jiro staying outside, and so the villain team wins, with Laura, even with her unconventional methods, being named MVP. The next fight goes by rather quickly compared to the other two. While Kamala and Tsuyu search for the weapon, Hagakure tries to sneak behind them and use the capture tape to disqualify her opponents. She gets in close and stretches it out to capture Tsuyu, but that made this small noise. In an instant, Kamala turns around and, beginning her arm, she slaps Hagakure into the wall, giving Tsuyu a chance to use her capture tape. They then head to the weapon room, where while Kamala keeps Kirishima busy, Tsuyu leaps towards the weapon, securing it. In the next round, Yorozu and Mineta play defensive, erecting a wall at the entrance that is meant to be impenetrable. However, Ashido managed to break through it using her acid, leaving Kaminari to disable the other two using low-level voltage, while Ashido secures the weapon. So the heroes win! Before the last match begins, Peter and Kitty prepare a strategy outside of Battle Building C. "So what's the plan?" asks Kitty. "Well, my plan was to win the match, but if you want to do something else, that's fine too," Peter answers. Kitty laughs a bit and says, "Well, obviously that, but I'd assume you have another plan with how you were looking at all the previous matches and everything." Peter blushes a bit and says, what's your quirk exactly? What can you do?" She laughs a bit and answers Peter, "My quirk is called Intangibility. When I activate it, I can't be touched. It also allows me to move myself and others through walls, but if I do it a lot, it takes a lot out of me." Under the correct circumstances, I can even float a bit, but I only managed to do that once, and I passed out. What about you? My quirk is called Spider. I can do everything a spider can. Climb walls, shoot webs, enhance strength, that sort of thing. Peter answers. He thinks for a moment and says, alright, here's the plan. A few minutes later, the exercise starts. When it does, Kitty grabs onto Peter and he asks, all set? While blushing a bit under the mask. She answers yes. So Peter jumps into the air, scaling the building from the outside, until they locate the right room. Peter wall crawls to the room next door, and Kitty uses her quirk to phase through, landing them inside the building. Remember the plan, Peter states. I'll go get in position and let you know when to strike. Kitty nods, so Peter quietly leaves the room, approaching the door next door. Inside the room that holds the weapon, Clayton complains, this is so boring. When will some action get here? Patience. Our time will come. We just have to safeguard the weapon, says Tokoyami, trying to comfort his partner. Just then, Peter crashes into the room, shouting, now! While he lunges at Tokoyami to immobilize him, Kitty phases through the wall, running straight for the weapon. Reacting quickly, Clayton activates his quirk, shooting sonic blasts at Kitty, which renders her defenseless, causing her to fall to the ground in pain. Kitty! Shouts Peter, seeing his partner hurt. Tokoyami pushes him back using Dark Shadow, but Peter is pissed. He grabs onto Dark Shadow, pushing him back while shooting a web at Tokoyami's feet. He pulls it, causing Tokoyami to trip, so Peter pushes Dark Shadow away and jumps at Tokoyami, rendering him unconscious with a precise punch. He turns his attention to Clash, who's enjoying keeping Kitty immobilized, the vision fading to one of a woman who's being attacked by the mugger who killed Uncle Ben. Peter shoots a web at Clayton's gauntlet, moving it away. Get off her! Peter shouts angry while swinging at Clayton. He hits Clayton back, moving him away. What the fuck? Shouts Clayton mad. That really hurts! Peter jumps in again. Clayton gets ready to punch him, but Peter stretches out his arms clinging to the roof. He kicks Clayton instead. After the kick, Peter sticks his feet under Clayton's chest, jumping to the ground with a flip. He lets go mid-jump. This flings Clayton across the room into a wall, knocking him out. Peter calms down a bit, having lost control of his emotions. He runs to Kitty and asks, "Are you okay?" "What?" shouts Kitty and responds. Peter takes off his mask and repeats his question. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, just have a killer headache and some ringing in my ears," she answers. "Now how about winning the exercise?" Peter walks to the weapon, touching it, winning the exercise for the heroes. After that, Clayton is sent to the infirmary because Peter broke a bone or two, where he's healed by Recovery Girl. Peter apologizes at the evaluation, where he's actually crowned MVP of the match. "Can anyone tell me why he's the MVP?" asks All Might. "What did the other team do wrong?" Yayarozu raises her hand and answers. Well, Peter established a solid plan that was well carried out by both him and his teammate. He managed to defeat his opponent using his quirk rather efficiently. However, it was clear that he lost control and lashed out at his adversaries, beating them up a bit too much. Not very heroic. As for the villains, Clayton should have turned his attention to his partner once he defeated Kitty. She was already rendered immobile by the sound attacks. But, like a villain, he focused on making her suffer instead of helping his partner, which ultimately allowed Peter to take his opponents out one by one using his superior skills. "That's right, young Yayarozu," says All Might. After everything is said and done, All Might takes everyone back to the gate of Ground Beta. There he blows a whistle and says, "That's a wrap! Super work! You really stepped up to the plate, and we didn't have any major injuries except for Midoriya. You should be proud. Excellent first day of training all around." Tsuyu comments, "It's nice to hear some encouraging words after our homeroom class. Mr. Aizawa was kind of a buzzkill." All Might shouts, "I'm happy to bring some such staggering positivity to my alma mater. That's all for now, folks. I should go check up on Midoriya's progress. Now watch how Pro exits like he's got somewhere to be." All Might dashes off as he is about to reach his time limit. After this, Peter goes to change back into his school uniform. He wants to congratulate Midori on his victory, but Midori is still unconscious in the infirmary, and Peter has to get to his support course class. He attends them, and afterwards he goes to the support course development studio to keep on improving and to design a couple of other devices and stuff. One in particular he thought of after seeing how Jiro used her quirk to locate her adversaries. He again works so late that he's kicked out, so Harry again offers him a ride home. So the two friends head home, where Peter takes the time to relax a bit, falling asleep rather quickly. And that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed this rather long video, which was actually a combination of what used to be parts 2 and 3, which is now only part 2, because, I don't know, I wanted to speed things up, but that made the script a lot longer as well. Hope you all enjoyed it, and like these new fact sheets that are in the background of the end screen. All that said, I hope you all like, subscribe, join the Discord and all that stuff. And until next time, everyone, have an absolutely fantastic day. Bye!